Had to get on my balance ball. My butt was falling asleep. Don't make fun of my unmade up bed. But rolling into my second story of my experience, this is actually dealing with police brutality. And while I haven't experienced it, I have witnessed it. So this is another one of those incidents where I say that you can be a victim whether directly or indirectly. And this is kind of an indirect thing with me. But growing up, we had a neighbor who was a veteran and black neighbor. Um, and I can, I'll just say Mr. W. So, you don't have to keep guessing. It's not like you know him anyway. But Mr. W was a veteran, and he also goes into shell shock every now and then. Well, and that's a side effect of when you're a soldier in war. You something just happened. It can be a pin drop, and you just automatically go something click in your mind, and you're like, "Oh my god!" And you just automatically think you're back in war times. Well, he was one of those people. He went into shell shock every now and then. I wouldn't say it's frequent, but it's bound to happen. And sometimes, you don't know actually every time at any given moment. But they have a history of that over at the house. And every time he goes into shell shock, they usually call the SWAT team out. I know, it sounds very extreme, but I mean, he did have, I believe, just one gun. You know, it wasn't like the last guy I was saying that had like an army supply of guns in his house. And of course, being my neighbor, he was very insightful, very, elderly guy, um, just on a lot of things. And hopefully one day I can get to that perspective of being wise, like, just wow, you'd have to have a conversation to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, uh, he would go into shell these episodes and they'd always call the SWAT team out. So this one particular incident, and I mean, usually it ends in pretty much a good light when it's with him. I mean, they just arrest him, detain him for a little bit, and then they'll send him back home, just to make sure everything is good. But, if push comes to shove, they do have the SWAT team come out. And this happened at least two times prior to this event that I'm about to describe here. Now, just so you know, the setup, my house is right across the street from his house, maybe a little off at an angle. And we would usually have to evacuate our house anytime they put a standoff in the street, whatever like that, because our house sits in the direct line of fire if push comes to shove. So usually the surrounding houses and the ones across from it have to, get out. Well, this one particular day, I was at home alone and I was actually deciding to go to the store and just, I needed to get something. And I was getting ready to leave when I see the police unit outside the house. Actually, it's funny because I was going outside the house and then I went back in the house for about 20 minutes and then I came back out and there was police cars like outside my house. I'm like, oh my God, not this again. Because usually when it happens for hours. So I was like, okay, Mr. Ward, went into shell shock again. Here we go. So I already knew the drill. I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm barricading myself in the house. I'm just gonna stand here. And our house has windows like out on the front that we can look. So we have this particular area, this bay window. If you don't know what a bay window is, it kind of curves out. But I can see his house from, of course, just straight beeline. And I'm looking at what's happening. I'm calling my mom. I'm actually not getting too much of an answer at this point, but telling her, hey, if you want to come home at this point, just know that Mr. Ward went into shell shock again. This is happening, this and that, whatever, like that. So I'm at the window, I'm at the bay window watching this all go down, and actually, it was not the case. So, Mr. Ward, yeah, I said I was going to call him Mr. W, but it just went ahead and slipped, whatever. Mr. Ward came out of the house with his hands up. And his son came out of the house with his hands up. But there were police cars and the SWAT kind of lined out, and they had their guns pointed at him. And his son that came out after him ran back into the house. But as soon as he did that, the police ran over to Mr. Ward, slammed him out on the ground, arrested him, put him in a squad car. But he was yelling things. I mean, I couldn't quite make audible at the time. Still, even if I'm watching this at a distance, but he was yelling things. But his son ran back in the house, and I was like, this is so unusual, because usually when they're trying to get him out of the house, like, Mr. Ward doesn't know what's going on. He, but he came out with his hands up, and they still detained him, everything of that nature. Well, son ran back in the house. They're still surrounding the house, doing the whole routine. And then they come and knock on my door. And this is where I remained silent. Like I stayed right there. I said, I didn't want to leave, like evacuate and go all the way up the street or whatever like that. Because I was like, this is odd. So I actually had like this little blue camera at the time, and I started recording, and it's kind of getting nightfall at this point. It's I think it was somewhere, it was between dusk, so things are getting dark. But they knock on my door, I don't answer, so they assume nobody is at home, and they go to the other doors to try to evacuate the other neighbors. But I'm still there in the bay window. And I, at some point, go and get this little blue camera that I have and start recording. Well, it lasted a good while. And at some point, I witnessed the officers. They are huddling up. They, doing their little briefing, whatever like that. And they go along the side of the house. I witnessed one of the officers break the glass of the side house, and they have like this little tiny window on the side of their house where they throw something in. They throw, I assume, tear gas into the house. They lit it, threw it into the house, hoping that they would smoke his son out of the house. Like it'll be too much and he'll just come out and he'll surrender. Well, they throw it in there. But then next thing we know, I'm seeing orange blazes come out of the house. So now the house is on fire. And I'm just thinking in my mind, like, is he still in there? Did he run out the back door? Did he go make a break for the woods? But no, they had people stationed behind the house too, in the woodland area, just in case he was to run out of the house. Well, the fire department came, and they were told by the police to stand off. So the house is at full blaze now, on fire, burning, and the fire department is up the street and was given the orders not to put the fire out. So we have a person possibly still inside the house. At this point, I say possibly inside the house while it's on fire, and the fire department is told by the police not to go put it out. So they have the SWAT team, they have the police, they have an ambulance up there too, as well as the fire department. This house is burning for a good minute. I don't even know. It felt like eternity. And they were finally given the word, the fire department was finally given the word to go and put out the blaze. Well, they put out the fire, all this other kind of stuff. It had to have been a good 45 minutes they let that house burn with the guy inside, possibly. That's it, that's this point, inside. And after they put out the fire and everything, and of course at this point my camera didn't hold the memory, all that kind of stuff, so I only caught a glimpse of it, but I did end up getting a good portion of it on it, and I'll get to that in a minute. But they put the fire out, and I'm still just watching. At this point it's pretty much nighttime, you know. Pretty much they go inside, they do once they get the clear from the fire department that they can do that, all of the kind of stuff, yada yada yada, you know. They go inside the house, and this is what I heard from the family after everything. The family told us that when they went inside, they found him curled up in the back room, burned. So you throw tear gas into a house, which probably knocked him unconscious, if not the smoke, and then he burns to death. Mr. Ward told us the story of why and who called the police. He said that he called the police because his son was sick. He said he had specifically told the operator that it wasn't him. There's nothing happening, no type of shell shock, no type of anything. I need an ambulance. My son is sick. Please bring them out. And they send the SWAT team. Well, they didn't do that because the house has a history of him going into shell shock, and they automatically assume we're just going to bring them anyway. And this is the after fact, and Mr. Ward told me this is what happened. This is what he ordered and asked. And the family told me, you know, that this is actually what happened. Like, this is actually how they found their son, was in the back room curled up and burned. So, but what they told the media is that he set the house on fire to commit suicide. I kid you not. They said that they found the stove rearranged or some sort like that. And that he committed suicide by setting the house on fire. And I was like, huh? And I heard this pretty much my own 2 years in the news, and I'm just like, that's not what happened. I am sitting here watching it. Now, the blue little recorder that I had, I actually ended up giving the tapes, that little portion of the tape, to the family to fight in court, but they threw it out because I will say the quality was pretty bad. Like, I'm talking this little, I guess it was like a Nokia, something like that. It was a little camera, cheap little thing, just good for taking small pictures, not good for video and audio and everything. But all you could see really was the fire blazing out the side of the window there. But they couldn't use that in the courts because you couldn't really see the police officers doing the whole tactic and whatever else. But from the witness to now, this is what happened. And I gave them my little report to what I saw. I gave the family that to use in the courts, but it still wasn't good enough. And they never called me like in to testify or anything like that when they tried to put it out with the police department. So the story in the media, he committed suicide, and that's it. When all the boy in the end wanted was an ambulance. So that was my wake up to police brutality, that they can react on impulse, but we are the ones that have to remain calm. It's almost like they shoot first and ask questions later, but get mad when civilians do the same. And though I don't condone any type of violence on the police, a lot of people will say eye for an eye, all this other kind of stuff. Yes, I do realize there is no room for error when you're in a profession like that. You signed up for this. You should have read the fine print. You're in a profession that puts their life on the line. Deal with it. And it's like a firefighter complaining that it's too hot. You signed up. So why are you fearing for your life? Where's the bravery behind that badge? You know, this is why you put it on, right? So it really just goes back to the whole psychological thing of how humans are easily manipulated, how it's so easy for us to follow orders. You know, we usually fall in line with whoever the most powerful. And it's kind of just human nature, you know. Um, but where in that cycle does this break? You know, who stands up? And I've seen the videos of some police officers trying to do good. Like I saw the video with the guy, the 75-year-old guy that was pushed down by the other, and there was one police officer that tried to help him up, but then another one pushed him away and made him keep going. No, like that should have been like that person that tried to go back and help that man. Those are the people we need, not the ones that pushed him away. So it takes, you know, the definition of bravery, they say, is being afraid, but you're doing it anyway. So it's going to take people like that to really just, make this difference happen. We all are afraid. But it's a test of strength, you know? But yeah, that's my big story, really, of police brutality. It happens even in your own neighborhood, like no matter where you live. And like I said, I live in kind of a suburban area. I'm not sure how it's classified now, but when I was growing up, it was pretty much the suburbs because it was a predominantly white neighborhood before it became all black. And it's funny because even the school I went to, Whitehaven, it's literally called Whitehaven, White Safe Place, in Memphis, Tennessee, Whitehaven High School. And that whole area used to be predominantly white, and you could see that through the pictures of the walls, of every graduating class that they had throughout the time. You see it all white, and then as it goes down towards the 2000s, you see it become speckled with black, and then it becomes like a moving timeline when you walk down the halls of high school. Um, but yeah, and then all the white people moved out there to like Germantown, Collierville, this and that, and blah, blah, just to get away from black people. Um, and that's why it's also been a fight to rename the school Blackhaven, you know. I don't know how that's going, but whatever. I graduated from Whitehaven. But yeah, so it does happen, and it's actually pretty sad. Like, at what point and to who do we listen to? And I heard that a couple of those police officers were rookies. They were new. So yeah, they may not know protocol, whatever, like that. And there are consequences within, but you really, if you're going, it's almost like lying on your resume. You really need to be honest if you are gonna put up or shut up in any profession that you go into. And even I have to realize this with acting also. And of course, being in an industry that's pretty much kind of gone unchecked when it comes to discrimination, in a sense. I mean, you get to pick a part based on if that character is white or black or whatever. And when you get the breakdowns, they're like, we need a white person. Even if it's not relevant to the story, they'll still be like, we just envision this character being white. So, but I'll speak about that later. I mean, it just comes with the territory, to be honest, and something that I know I have to kind of roll with or whatever, in a sense. But I feel like that's getting better in different areas. So yeah, that's my experience with police brutality. Though it wasn't directly on me, it's just we see how they react first and then ask questions later, when it should be the other way around. And I get sometimes you're acting on impulse, but I mean, your impulses are not even just that, it's really just fear. And fear of what? And let me go ahead and say, these weren't all white police officers. These were, it was mixed. It was some black police officers, some white police officers, and I think there was like two Asian guys, but they were like standing off at the squad car. But you know, yeah. So it's really no room for that. If you are going to be in something like the military, fire department, or even ambulance, even doctors, like you can't half-ass your job. You can't, you know, you can't just be like, oh well, some of us are good, some of us are bad. You know, it has to be all or nothing. But yeah, second story. Stay tuned for part 3.